Sit. This is Bill. Sit. And this is Bill's roadmap to success. Thank you, buddy. Now, Bill is a grumbly dog, but besides the grumbling, I think he's just grumbling because he doesn't know where his position in the family is. And he likes to, he's reactive to gentlemen of the Caucasian persuasion. So I fit in that bill. So, pun intended. So basically what we want to do is help him start to build up positive associations around tall white guys, because that seems to be who he has a response for. Now before we got into that, the video above got a little cut off at the end, but I'm going to talk about some other tips in this video, is we want to first of all help him to start to adopt a follower's mindset. His guardians right now basically pet him whenever he wants on demand, and basically didn't have a lot of rules for him. And so I think that confused him into thinking that he needed to be protective or possessive of his humans. And then when men came in who are tall and white, he really has a problem with that. Now that might be for a number of reasons. It doesn't necessarily mean he was abused. It could have been he was a street dog and he kept on knocking people's trash cans over to get some food, and some white guy came out and yelled at him. Sit. Sit. Remember, whenever you're giving a treat, always say the command word of the treat after the treat goes into the dog's mouth. So basically, there could have been a lot of reasons for this, but I think part of this is exasperated because I think that he is stressed out. Because he feels like he's in charge of the humans, but when he tells the humans what to do, they don't listen to him. And just like a parent who has a child who doesn't listen and puts themselves in dangerous situations, let's start stressing them out because we're worried that they're going to get in trouble. Bill, that's a good trot. Come. And so we started off the session by talking about exercise. Now, we're just down the street from the dog park. This is the same street that I lived in Santa Monica. And there's a great dog park there, so they can actually go there and burn off some excess energy. They notice that when they walk him, if they've, towards the end of the walk when he's tired, he's not as reactive. So one of the things I suggest is they actually start taking him to the dog park for 15, 20 minutes of play, about half an hour before they're going to go out on the walk. That's a good sit, buddy. Sit. So we can give him 15 or 20 minutes of play around and burn off that top level of energy. Then bring him back home, give him about 15, 20 minutes to rest so he's no longer panting. Then we take him down to Main Street in Santa Monica or wherever it is, and now we burn off that top level of energy, and then it's going to be easier for him to not react because he's just not so worked up. Now, the Guardians watch one of my focus exercises on video, focus, which is basically that little trick right there. I'd like them to go through and practice this. Now, when you're practicing the focus, we want to practice first inside in different parts of the house. Now, first it's going to be 1 second on each movement. There are 2 movements. I'll show you. 1 second, 1 second. Focus. Now, he has a little bit of a lazy eye, so I'm going towards, when him looking at me, the eye that's on his left side or his right side. And then I'm basically, when I put it here, I'm just waiting for him to look at me. I'm not luring him. I'm not moving at all. I'm just waiting for him to look at me in the face. Not necessarily eye contact, just facial contact. And as soon as he does, that's what triggers the treat to move first to my nose, focus, then to his mouth. The reason we raise it to our nose is to keep him looking in this direction and we go a straight line towards him so he's still looking at my face the whole time. Now first it's 1 second, 1 second. We're going to get up to the point where we're 1 second, 15 seconds on that second movement. Now we go by 1 second increments, maybe all 12 treats, 1 second, the next person does it, all 12 treats, and the second movement, 2 seconds. So keep on doing this until eventually you can get up to the 15-second mark. Now once we get done 15 seconds in the house all over the place, then we're going to practice it right outside of the deck. Now do this when there are not dogs barking outside or not like crazy stuff going on, and go back to 1 second, 1 second. Do that and eventually get back up to 15 seconds, but this time you can move a lot faster. Maybe 1 second, 1 second for 3 treats, 1 second, 2 seconds for 3 treats, and so on. Once we can get to the point where outside there and outside the front door, we can get him to focus on us for 15 seconds without any distractions around, then we want to practice on a walk. Practicing on the walk to the dog park is a great way to do it. So as we're doing it, he walks to the left side, the guardian says, hey, focus, he looks up, the guardian raises the treat to the nose and starts going like this, and we go back to 1 second on the second movement as well. And then give him the treat, say the word focus. Eventually 2 seconds, 4, you get up to the point where it's 15 seconds, so you're walking about 10 or 12 paces with him looking up at you to get that treat. You don't want to start to use this until you get to the 15 seconds of walking where he looks up at you before you actually start using that when you do see someone coming around. But then once at that point, if we're walking down to Bay Cities and we're on Lincoln and we see that there's a tall white man walking towards us, We can say focus, and he looks up at me, maybe I turn and I go down a driveway, or just get a little bit out of the way and give that person the opportunity to pass us, and I'm redirecting the dog's focus at me to prevent him from reacting. When it comes to dogs that are reactive, the key is to catch them right at the first stage, and this is what I started going over towards the end of the video above, the dog body language. And so one of the things the guardians might want to do is walk in maybe down on the beach and just have one of the guardians walk in on the other side of the boardwalk videotaping him. And then if we see people coming up, and I try to do it where we're kind of shooting him a little bit from behind and the side, so you get the side and as well as what's coming in the foreground. And then we see a white guy coming up and he reacts, but we can go back and play it in slow motion on a TV where you can see his ears do this, he crunches up his nose, he shows his teeth, his tail does this, his ears do that, his hackles go here. Now we start seeing all those little signs. Then when we're on a walk and when I see a white person coming by down the street, I can look down at him, and if I start seeing some of those signs, that's when I want to give him that redirection with the focus exercise. So the focus is great, but you have to get up there, so really try to get to the 15 seconds within 7 days. Okay, now the focus is just a way to redirect the dog's attention away. That's something I also talk to the guardians about because he knows a couple of tricks. Well, one of the guardians here is going out of the way to teach him. She's trying to teach him to roll over right now. The more tricks that he knows, the more ways we have to redirect his attention. Additionally, we also have the ability to stop the cortisol development. When a dog voluntarily looks at you in the eyes for longer than 9 seconds, it starts releasing oxytocin and serotonin into the human's brain and into the dog's brain. But you can't lure the dog to do it, which is why when we do the focus, we have the dog looking here, we wait for the dog to look away from the treat, and then we reward the action after it happened. We don't move, dog trainers that teach you will watch me, they hold the treat like here. Well, you're luring the dog to look up here, that gets the dog to look at you in the eye contact, but it doesn't produce the oxytocin and serotonin. The reason that those are the love hormones, that's what mothers get when they breastfeed a child. The reason those are so important is, first of all, there are pleasure endorphins, number one. Number two, the cortisol, which is the stress hormone, cannot be produced at the same time that the serotonin is produced. And I'm pretty sure he has some thank you, buddy. I'm pretty sure that he has some cortisol being released in his blood. That's, if you see him kind of get jumpy, that's kind of usually the result of cortisol in the blood. So that's the other reason why I teach the focus exercise the way we do, and the reason it's so beneficial is you can stop the production of the stress hormone and keep him from getting worse. Now, other things that he can do, like teach him to roll over, sit, play dead, bounce a treat on his nose, you actually can teach him to go get a beer for you out of the fridge, which is something one of the guardians mentions the joke, but I've actually taught dogs to do that. Is one of those things, crash. Is by teaching him these things, now we can boost his self-esteem, and it's going to help him feel more confident. And most of the dogs that are reactive aren't reactive out of aggression. They're usually reactive to compensate for something. I think in his case, a little insecurity, and I think he's stressed out thinking he needs to protect his humans. So we talked, so if the guardians can spend the next 8 weeks, one guardian on Sunday this week teaches him to bang your dead. Next week we teach him to bounce a treat on his nose. Make sure they're not too difficult. One of them I talked about patrol, just getting the dog to walk around you. Simple things like that are not hard to teach, but it gives you a great way to boost the dog's self-esteem and give you a different way to redirect his attention. So try to set a goal for each one of you guys teaching 4 new things. Go to YouTube. All these dog trainers want to be Cesar Millan, and so they want a dog show, so they show you how to teach your dogs to do all these tricks. So, and here's the other thing, there's an old joke, if you get 2 dog trainers together, the only thing they'll agree on is the other dog trainer is wrong, because they think their method is the best method. As a behaviorist, what I've found is the more methods that I know, the more tools that are in my tool belt that I can help other dogs. So I'm not lined up to one specific thing. Dogs learn differently just like humans do. So if you're trying a technique to get him to roll over and he's not responding to it, look for another technique on YouTube that teaches that same lesson in a different capacity or a different way. Body language, while we're at, when I was first here, he was laying down, but he was laying down facing me. Laying down sideways to me and being asleep as he is tells me that I've gained some trust with him. Now, if I get up and move around, he's going to start reacting because his neural pathways are locked in doing that because he's been practicing doing that. But the more that the guardians practice some of these, some of the things we have in the video above and some other tips I'm going to share in a minute, the more that he's going to stop reacting and develop new neural pathways and more positive ways of interacting with dogs, or with humans, excuse me. So real quick, some of the other rules that we went over, not being allowed on the furniture for at least 30 days, and all these rules should be at least 30 days or as long as the problem's still going on. And at the end of that period of time, furniture with an invitation. and that's a one-time invitation, and it's only for good behavior. So if I invite him up and he starts barking or growling, he has to get down. Now, I don't like to force dogs to do anything, so the way I get him to get down is I touch his nose with the treat, I toss him to the ground, when he jumped down and licked it up, I said the word off. We also taught him how to leave the kitchen by going to the kitchen with a treat, and as soon as he's in there, we touch his nose with a treat, and we threw it out just 2 feet outside the kitchen, and we licked it up and we said the word out. You can also do this with your bedroom, the deck, any place that you might want to have him leave. It's important because one of the rules is he's not allowed to be in the kitchen when the humans are cooking food, or in the dining kitchen area when they're eating. And so if we force him out, that creates a longing to go in there. We teach him that out command that makes it easy to communicate what we want. Now, he may still want to be in there. So that's why we went over the 4 escalating consequences to disagree with unwanted actions. Hiss. Number 2 is standing up abruptly, turning to face him, and all the rest of that. Number 3 is marching deliberately at him until he turns sideways. The 4th one, actually, I forgot, I didn't go over, is putting the dog on a leash and stepping on the leash about this far away from where it attaches to him until he lays down and is completely calm. Now, if you have questions about the escalating consequence, you forget how to do that, or get him out of the kitchen, message me. I have videos I can share you that I've done with other clients I can share very easily. Let me see. Other rules, going to the dog park. Make him sit. Well, I'd also make him sit on walks every time he crosses the street. Stop, sit. As soon as he sits, and start walking. The walking, resuming, becomes the reward. When we go to the dog park, just like most good dog parks, they have a little entry area, which is a little gated area with 2 gates. So what I would do is go in the first gate and tell him to sit. And don't take his leash off until he sits. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, don't say it multiple times. The more you say it, the less you need it. So say sit once. If he doesn't sit within about 3 seconds, pull out your phone, check some emails, check news, whatever's going on today in the world of politics or whatever it is. After 1 minute, tell him again, sit. And if he sits that time, then we take the leash off. If he doesn't, then we wait. And so the first sit is going to be for taking off the leash. And as soon as he sits, we take the leash off. Then we walk a couple steps over towards where the second gate that goes into the dog park is and tell him to sit again. You grumble, grumbly. And so I must hear something outside or see something. No, I didn't see it under the door. But basically, the second, when I get ready to go in the dog kennel or in the dog park, he has to sit a second time. If he doesn't sit, within 3 seconds, I lean back against the fence, pull out my phone, and do something for 1 minute. Next time for 2 minutes, and for 4 minutes and 8 minutes. Keep doubling the length of time until eventually, when we tell him to sit, he sits right away. Now, as soon as he does, then we open the door, and that gives him the freedom to go in there. So practicing sitting for no apparent reason when we cross streets, there's no apparent reason to him, but there's a reason for that. We want to give him pause. I have a dog now that won't actually go in the street. I play fetch with her in the front yard, the ball rolls in the street, and I've got to run 2 houses away and go in the street and get it because she won't go. And I don't want her to go in the street. It just takes practice, and that's one of the ways that I taught her to do that. Let me see. Other rules, and remember to practice the bacon or whatever it is, and then simulate like you're cooking. So he has the smell of the bacon, and then using that escalating consequence to move him out. And once he sits or lies down, this is finally the end of the session, he's sitting with his back to me. This is a good indication he's comfortable. Once he sits or lays down in the kitchen, then we can actually go and do our real cooking. And we did a warm-up session. We do the same thing when you're eating food. Just so something is, the smell is the most important thing for dogs. Another thing, I'd like the guardians to make sure that they're eating before they feed him. So I would put food in the bowl. I don't let the dog have the access to the food. I block it using the 3rd escalating consequence. Then I eat 5 or more chips of it, cracker, celery, something crunchy preferably. When I'm done with that, I use passive training. I invite the dog to come over, and so I might want to say the name of your favorite pizza place or whatever it is, a restaurant or type of food. When he takes his first bite of food, say maybe meatball. And after a while, meatball will mean go eat your food. We also went over how to teach him to go to the dog bed and dog kennels with different names for each one of those. So the more we do that, practice that. So every once in a while you're hanging out and he's hanging out next to you, toss a treat in the dog bed. When he goes over and gets it, say stage. Toss one in the kennel and say booth. And then what's the last one? Studio is in the bedroom. And so now he has different we have, again, different ways of communicating what we want where he understands because we've created a shared vocabulary. Remember, whenever we're coming up with fun command words, just like stage, booth, and studio, come up with fun command words that are going to make people smile. Dogs should read facial expressions. So we come up with these fun command words, especially when we have some heaviness with some of the dog's interactions. So we have a guest that comes over that's one of the people that he gets triggered by, but he hears all these funny command words. That lightens the mood, makes the guy feel more comfortable. He's going to feel the perception. The guy feels pretty relaxed. I'm going to feel pretty relaxed. It helps across the board. Now, I also like the Guardians to make a list of the official command words. I heard at one point both Guardians were calling him, and they said, come here, his name, over here, whistle, all these different sounds. The more words we make him listen for, the harder it is for him. It's much easier for all of us just to be on the same page. We always say here, we always say down, we always say sit, or whatever the command words are. So come up with that list of command words and put it up on the fridge and just say vocabulary if you're using the wrong version of the word. And give yourself little visual reminders. Put a little post-it note right over here over the dog bed that's called stage, but it just says stage. Things along those lines. Also for sitting, if you have the screen door closed and he wants to go outside, go to the door and tell him to sit. If he doesn't sit, walk away, sit down, wait 1 minute, then go back and tell him to sit again, or walk away for 2 minutes, and 4 minutes, 8 minutes. But eventually, as soon as he sits, you open the door for him. So that way he starts to understand that I have to sit and ask for things rather than telling or taking them from my guardians. In that regard, we also went over petting with a purpose and passive training. Now, a real quick synopsis, petting with a purpose is giving the dog a command if I want to pet him or if he is demanding attention from me. Now, after a while, what will happen is he'll come and sit in front of us to prepay for the attention or lay down or whatever it is. So once he starts doing that, make sure we do pet him and recognize and reward him for doing that. So every time he comes to you, pet him and say, come. That's passive training. Let me get to that in a second. So if he nudges me, nothing happens. When he tells me what to do, nothing happens. But if I tell him what to do and he does it, he gets a reward. That creates more motivation for him to want to do the things that we want, and also helps shift the leader-follower dynamic so he sees that the humans have to be asked or paid for something. I can't just demand it. Now, passive training is basically waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior without any influence from the humans. So I'm sitting here, he's drinking water. If he comes back over to me, if I pet him and say the word come, that's rewarding that. Now, it's the slowest way of training a dog, but it's the easiest. This is what I meant about feeding him. So when he takes his first bite of food, if we say Dario's, if that's our favorite restaurant, then here's some cat is not having a good time. So then we create that command word. See how his tail's straight up? He heard the cat, and he's going out to patrol. So again, keeping that, filming him in a couple of incidents where he does react could help you find out what all of his body language cue and signals are. Now, I want to go over some tips that the Guardians can use when they have guests come over. Bill, come. Bill. Now, the more we say it, the less we mean it. So if he were to stay over there, what I would do is go over there with the leash, attach the leash, and then bring him in. Don't do it aggressively, don't do it in a punitive way, but look, buddy, when I tell you to do something, it's going to happen. Either you do it voluntarily, or I'm going to make sure that it happens. Again, not an aggressive or abusive way. Come. So that's passive training. He came on his own. I just rewarded what I wanted, and I marked it with saying just the command word. And I didn't say good boy, or good Bill, or what a good come. Just the command word. The more words you use when you're training a dog, the more confusing it is for the dog. Now, if you come home and you have a crappy day, you're like, can you believe that guy? I mean, I was trying to be nice and not block the intersection, and then that guy zoomed in and took the spot, and I had to wait for another extra leg. That's healthy. Venting to your dog is fine. But if you want him to sit, Bill, sit, sit. Remember, use that hand motion. So if I want him to come to me, I lower it. I'll use this hand motion that you've already seen. There we go. There we go. If I want him to sit, I go to arc over his head. As soon as his butt hits the ground, I lower it and let him lick it off my hand. Now, the fact that he just stepped those steps away from me tells me, again, I'm not fully comfortable with you. And so if you see him and he moves away from a guest like that, then you know that that's just his way of saying, I'm not fully comfortable with the guest. And again, he's sitting. This is what he did at first. He's laying down, but he's pointed directly at me. We're going to have a professional who's going to help make sure that we see everything. And so reading his body language and understanding what he wants and what he needs gives us the ability to change the environment so that he doesn't have to correct for himself. We're doing that for him, or we're getting him out of trouble before he gets into trouble. Now, when we have guests come over, I'd like the Guardians to try to make an effort for the next month to try to have at least 2 white men come over for separate visits. Now, these should be pretty short visits. Now, what I'd like the Guardians to do is, first of all, meet outside of the place. Don't meet in here, because this is more confined. It's going to be more, it's going to go better if we do it outside. So basically, meet outside, have them on a leash already, walk just down the street or around the block, wherever you're comfortable. It doesn't have to be a really long walk. But at some point, if he's pretty relaxed, I'd like to have a human, dog in the middle, and the human. Does he walk next to you guys, or is he all over the place?
He'll walk next to us.
Okay, if he walks next to you, the idea is to kind of make a sandwich with the humans as the bread on the outside. And at some point on the walk, hand the leash to your friend. Now this has got to be somebody who's going to be very confident around dogs. If they're nervous, that can trigger a response. So if there are any nervousness, don't have those people start up at the beginning. And then basically, when you get to the halfway point, that's by then you've transitioned the leash, then the other person is actually taking him on the walk. If you do trust the person, if you could have them take him for a walk independent of you, that's even better. But the idea is we want to have a little bonding time, and dogs get over things literally by moving forward. So that really helps. Stretch. Passive training. I did teach one of my dogs to stretch. Just doing that, it's kind of funny. I say stretch, he sticks his butt in the air, waggles his tail, and on command. And so again, it's a nice way to redirect his attention. So you start off by meeting outside, and then the person either walks with you guys or separately on the little mini walk. They come back in, the person should keep the leash, and then basically at that point, once they lay down, they can put the leash down, and then you guys take the leash off, or they can if they feel comfortable about it. Now, when the guest wants to get up, what we want to do is we want to create a conditioned positive reinforcer about this. So what I would do is give the guest a handful of treats, and as they stand, maybe they would give them a treat and stand up. And then take one step and drop the treat on the ground. And then take another step and drop the treat on the ground. And he's going to follow the guest around as they go to the kitchen to get a glass of water, the bathroom, wherever it is. But now, every time they take a step, at first we're dropping a treat. After he gets more comfortable, then we start dropping the treat every 2 steps, every 3 steps. And after a while, it's like 5, 6, 7 steps, or I get to the sink, and then I drop the treat. But now that instead of the dog, because when people move around, I think in his mind, what he's saying is, I didn't give you permission to move around. I have to follow you now because I'm worried you're going to steal our stuff, or you're going to get in trouble. So now we help him. He's going to continue following us. We don't disagree with that. But when he does follow us, good things happen to him. Now, for the guests that come over, they should ignore him. I don't want them to try to look at him. Eye contact, he's got an eye contact issue. After the walk and we've done this other stuff, then I'd like to have the guardians play a little bit of the focus game for about 5 treats, and then maybe sitting right here with the guest doing it, and then have the guest give 12 treats, and then the guest does the focus exercise. That'll help him practice looking people in the eye. And instead of looking as a challenge, he starts looking as a good thing. Now we can also teach him how to toss, how to catch. Remember to do that. That's a great interaction. If he growls at the guest and you can't do the focus, we get him sit over there and the guest can throw treats with him. You got to teach a dog to catch. What you do is have one person sitting next to the dog, the other person throwing the treats. Don't go 1, 2, toss. Just toss on the first one. Make sure it's a good toss. All I have to do is open his mouth and it goes into his mouth. It'll still bounce off his nose on the ground. The person sitting next to him picks it up. So the only way the dog gets a treat is if he snatches it out of the air. That creates motivation. After a while, the dog will be like an NFL receiver snatching stuff out of the air. Then you can have the guest ask him to sit, and then have the guest toss him like 10 or 15 treats if you can achieve the focus exercise. So we have kind of a plan B. This lets the dog have kind of an interaction or play game with the guest, but in a positive way. Now, eventually we'd like to, and the guest should wait for Bill to approach them. Now, this is confrontational. This is approachable sideways. So if the dog came over and I had it and he's sniffing me, don't tell them. This is when people reach over to try to pet. That's the very first initiated contact by the dog. You want to just, if he comes over to do that, the guest should just remain completely still. Don't look at him, just freeze and let him sniff you as much as possible. That's what we want. And then when he moves away, then the guest could take out a treat. And let's say the Bill is 5 feet away from me. I might toss the treat 2 or 3 feet away. So it's halfway distance between us. Bill comes and gets it and turns and walks away. Then I do it again, but a little bit closer this time, a little bit closer. Eventually I put it on my toe, and Bill comes over and he's taking the treat off of our toe. But what we want him to do is practice approaching someone and then being able to move away on his own volition, and nothing bad happened. The person didn't touch me, because in his mind, if you try to reach for him, I think he's going to look at it as a negative. Now, if he's barking out there, he's on the little lanai right now, and the guardian went over and tapped the window. If you don't want him to do it, I would go in outside, put your back, get in between. Set it up so that the Bill is between the human and the inside of the house, and march towards him using the third escalating consequence to make sure that he comes inside. Now, I'd also, while we're on the subject, you might want to just teach him how to do it. Go out there on the line with a treat, and then touch his nose, and then toss it inside. Maybe say casa or house or something that needs to go inside. And now you have a vocabulary. So if he's out there barking, you say casa, he runs inside expecting to get a treat. You don't have to go and rearrange it. Again, we want to be as force-free as possible. As we possibly can. Let me see. So getting back to the guest, if the dog comes over and sniffs and the guest reaches to pet him, that's probably going to create a response. What one of the dog do is come and sniff him, then walk away. Then the guest is going to start tossing the treats the way that I mentioned. And then after a while, once he comes all the way and takes it off of the guy's toe, then the guy should put a treat here, let the dog come and get it. Let's see if I actually have one. I am out. You have that bag of treats? Oh, I put it right here.
Yeah.
There we go. So when the dog, if they throw it like that way and Bill comes over and gets it, when you do want to actually give him one from your hand, you want to hold it like this, off to the side and not looking at it. And notice how I'm leaving my hand here. He took the treat, licked it. He's licked it again. He's licked it a third time. And now he's looking for more treats. The more that he sniffs and licks the guest, the more he gets to know them. And so by moving, a lot of people give him the treat and they pull their hand away, and that takes that away. So if we can get him practiced at approaching guests and being able to move away, nothing bad happens. And the closer I get, the more treats I get. After a while, he starts to feel good. And again, when the guest walks around, treats fall from the sky. It's like kind of making it rain, but with treats. Now these are the treats that I'm using. These are Tricky Trainers. We're almost done with the bag here. You're not going to need supper tonight. Look at that. He sat down. I'll just give you a little one of these for that. Yes. And say sit. Remember, give them the treat first, say the command word, or pet first and say the command word immediately after. Now the reason these work so well, they have no preservatives, so make sure you fold your bag over, burp all the air out of it, and zip it shut. Don't refrigerate it. When it comes to food, the most important thing for the dogs is smell. Temperature is second most important. Taste is actually a distant third. So don't refrigerate these. Anything else I'm forgetting?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
I'm pretty good at summarizing these things.
Yeah.
So now I'm right down the street. So if you guys do have questions or things are not working, please let me know. I can run over real quick and spend 5 minutes showing, coaching you guys up on a certain exercise. Sit. Sit. All right, well, this is Bill, and this is Bill's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you need it.